Hello and welcome to the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship live on Apex Racing TV and live on the iRacing Esports Network. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick and alongside me is Daniel Lee with Scott Newton on the cameras, and we are preparing for this fresh season. Daniel, it came down to the wire as it always does last season. Nathan Huppert's just losing out to Timothy Phoeben at the last round at Belle Isle. And just like that, 2 weeks later, we're back with another season, and we've got so many drivers, probably a dozen drivers, all up for the title this season.
Yeah, good evening, Sam. All the viewers tuning in. Great to have you back for season 12. And you put it pretty well. We saw a fantastic battles through season 11 all the way to the conclusion at Belle Isle. Really unfortunate for Nathan with the minor little issues he had as far as technical glitches with the dropout, which ultimately cost him a good shot at that championship. So he'll be raring to go, come back season 12, looks what he can do and go from there. But I mean, we kick off at a great venue tonight, Silverstone. It's a fantastic race. We've seen awesome racing over the past few seasons where we've come here, and I expect we're going to be in for something very, very similar again tonight.
I think so. This has become a bit of a mainstay, hasn't it, on the calendar, season after season. Revisit this place. We had a fantastic season 9 season finale, I believe, where the championship came down to the last lap round this track for the title. This time, though, we start off around this very historic track this season. Bit of a change compared to last season. We've followed the IMSA schedule the past few seasons. However, this season we are following the Le Mans series schedule, so it should be 12 or even 13 rounds, I believe, seeing that this is a leap season in iRacing of brilliant action coming up. Got a 45-minute race coming up for you. The drivers have already taken part in qualifying. There's 3 splits today. Loads of drivers, over 100 drivers qualified for today's event. And in this top split, we've got only the best 40 drivers. So it is an absolutely fantastic level of competition you are about to watch. So practice, short little practice, is just about to finish. We'll soon go through your grid before we start with the rolling starts. And on pole position for this round of the championship is going to be Blake Delaney. No, it's not. Craig Edwards, apologies. On pole position for this round of the championship. Aaron Lee starts in second place. There's Aidan Luthwaite, Joshua Thomas, Michael Healy, Danny Davison, Julian Clean-Busink, Nathan Huppert, Tom Hagen, Martin Silvassi, Ross Rizzo, Brenton Hobson, Steve Janssen, Jeremy Clark, Lee Vandenberg, Adam Gardner, Timothy Phoeben, defending champion, remember, starting in 17th place. Then it's Jordan Cullis, Kane Ryder, and Darren Lobb. That is the top 20, and when you look down that order, you see some absolutely terrific drivers. Of course, Danny, but I mean, the fact that we got the defending champion Phoeben, who ended last season so strongly with that podium at Belle Isle, and in 17th place, really does just show the quality.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but that being said, look for these guys to come through throughout the course of the championship. And I mean, we've had some pretty interesting changes to the rulebook for this season, so it really opens the door as far as strategy that these guys will utilize to build their way back up through the field as well. So look out for that later on as well, which I think is going to add really good spice to the event.
Yeah, I think so. So the drivers just moving away at the moment. And there is Craig Edwards looking to get his championship off to a good start, as all of these drivers are. There's so many championship contenders. We've also got the 4 classes, a little bit more on that later on. It's Edwards who's controlling the order for Fusion Sim Racing, and we're about to get this season of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship underway. Edwards on pole, and we are away racing for 45 minutes round Silverstone, and it's a good start for Luthwaite. Straight away gets past Aaron Lee. That's a really strong start for the BMW drivers. Also Thomas as well, trying to get past Lee, but the opportunity wasn't quite there into turn 1. Hobson with a good start, gaining a couple of places. Already going defensive is Edwards, taking a really tight line into the first hairpin. We've got a couple of drivers just going off. Tom Huggan was involved in that one, and also Jeremy Clark in a separate incident, and a couple of others as well, also just getting tapped down. But still in the lead, it's Edwards. Luthwaite and Thomas now going side by side with Lee. Way off the circuit is Lee, and he's off into the barrier. Will he come back onto circuit? It seems like he hasn't ricocheted back onto the tarmac. But that is a big incident for the Joe who started in second place, and that's any chance of the race victory gone for him. And Luthwaite now moves up into the lead. He's past Craig Edwards. So Edwards seems to have it all sorted out, and Luthwaite gains a couple of places in turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, really good jump from everyone initially. The getaway very nice there for Lee. Unfortunate that Porsche seemed a little bit tricky and got the wiggle. We saw that car go well off into the barriers. Hasn't really recovered, and we'll see him come down the lane for another stop. There were some other big incidents as well as everyone was trying to get themselves sorted out, which everyone seems to have got away from now. But Luthwaite in the Synergy Sim Racing car, we didn't see a lot of him last season, but he's come out here on song looking very, very quick at the moment. As we're already starting to see with some of those issues earlier on, the field's starting to get strung out just a little bit here.
Yeah, you can see Adam Gardner quite a long way behind, isn't he? As we saw one of the judges drop down earlier on, it was quite surprising that he wasn't dropping down further. Because, yeah, a couple of incidents, as you say, and the field has very much had a divide. Gardner now at the head of this massive chain, which goes all the way back to Braden Nashdan in 21st position. You can see it for yourselves on the screen, but Gardner just about clear into club. There might be a move though from Nicholson on Pickering. Didn't quite happen, however. Out in the lead then, Luthwaite leading first lap of the race, on the first lap of the race at 2 minutes 1. Expect those lap times to improve considerably in these opening few laps as the tyres warm up. And whilst Luthwaite does have the lead, it's not comfortable. It's an odd circuit I always find this track, Daniel. On paper, it should be quite possible to overtake, but just wonder if it's got a bit of the Barcelona syndrome, where despite these long straights, there's not big braking areas at the end of these long straights, so it's not necessarily easy to overtake.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of good spots where you really do have some good opportunities, especially that run up into turn 2 there. But if you can't get the car alongside, it makes it very tricky, as you say, to get these moves done. And we're seeing that a lot through the course of the championship, especially at Silverstone now, is getting quite tricky as Luthwaite's still extending his lead. But for the guys here, if they can catch up, I think we're going to see a lot of overtakes potentially being done in the pit stop. If they can get the time in quickly, that's where they're going to make their ground. And for Edwards right now, this is actually probably a really good opportunity if he wants to look at that style of strategy there. He can utilise Luthwaite's draft to help coast a little bit through some of the mid corners. It's still very early to be doing that, however, but he might be able just to extend that window just a fraction and look to make that little bit of time up that he needs through the pit stop.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolutely crucial element. Of course, we can have safety cars as well in this championship. But surprisingly, we didn't get a safety car actually on the opening lap, because I'm pretty sure Aaron Lee had to tow back to the pits, but no safety car was deployed. So now at the moment, however, last season you could pit on the opening lap of the race and get to the end of the event. This season, the fuel much more restricted, so you have to leave it a little bit longer. But a pace car now still probably can get to the end of the race. The majority of the Jazz Harputs and Clean Boosting were battling just a little bit before, but they seem to have sorted themselves out. Some of the big gainers so far, Will Orton up 11 places. He is just behind the guy that we're watching on board now, Scott Gamble. He's up 8 himself. To be fair, is Gamble after a few of the incidents, but Carlos, Ryder, Lee, Patterson, Clark, Beeben as well, defending champion, he's dropped down, and also Huggan as well, all with very poor starts.
Yeah, just see a big move up the inside. Will Orton getting through on Scott Gamble there, so that's a good change of position. The forward looking very good after a few little tweaks. I've been keeping an eye on that through opening season practice so far, and Ford looking to be probably one of the handier cars out there tonight. We're definitely seeing a lot of uptake at the moment with the Porsches as well. The Ferrari seems to have dropped off a little bit, so maybe earlier on in the season the guys not finding their feet with that car just yet, but it's nice to see a good mix in our top 10 at the moment. We've got almost even split between the Porsches and the BMWs currently. We've still got a Ford up there in the hands of Ross Rizzo for Trick Esports as well, which is good to see. That car, Ross had a bit of an ordinary season by his accounts last time out in the Ferrari, so has made that change to the Ford, so he should be very quick going forward. He's got his teammate just a couple of spots up ahead of him as well in Martin Silvassi, so the electric guys on it tonight already.
I think iRacing took a bit of weight off the board in the most recent build, which has considerably helped its speed. Still not used by a whole lot of drivers, but drivers who did pick it before the season started, I think will be feeling quite happy that they did that now. There was some alongside going into Stowe Corner. Don't think there was a move being made, but clean boosting. Oh, that's not going to quite happen on Huppert right there. Davison at the front of this chain. He's getting a little bit detached from Healy at the moment. The front few guys pulling away slightly. Currently a 5-second gap between first and seventh place that we're currently watching. Team boosting with that face change. Alternative New Zealand flag. Which I must say would be fantastic if they adopted that one. Rizzo and Berg. We've also got a very slow Porsche on the inside, but that's just a back marker. So lots of close moves at the moment, but it's not quite happening. Aaron Lee, of course, who's one lap down, just lets him pass the leaders there.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go tonight if he wants to get back around and try and make something of this after what was a fantastic qualifying for him. He's going to have a lot of work to do after recovering from that earlier lap incident. Here's a little look at it just to see what unfolded there. You can see the car of Lithuate and Edwards just ahead, working through the mid-corner there, runs it up on the grass, and the grass is what's ultimately brought an end to that one and hard into the wall there. So that would have been a big lot of damage that needed to be repaired on that ERT car in order to get back out on the circuit there.
Yeah, they do get a fast repair in this race, but I think he also towed back to the pit, so hence why he's currently one lap down on the race leaders. But Lee, who is a driver who we haven't seen a whole lot of, I believe, in the past. Let's see him back in future rounds of the championship. You can see at the bottom of your screen, drive through penalty for Crater. You can actually do drive through penalties now, thanks to iRacing. We are on the esports network, so we can give iRacing thanks for implementing drive throughs. Long awaited, but the stewards can now just press a button and it gives a drive through, which wasn't an option before, but that is now a possible element for them to use. Gardner, I think, just losing a couple of players. That may have been a slowdown for Gardner on that occasion. Also got Vincent Hobson, I think, just towing back. No, Hobson just coming into the pits, actually. So he's the first one to pit. That's an odd one, isn't it, Daniel? 8 minutes into the race. Can you get to the end of this race from here?
Look, it's probably a bit of an interesting call for most of these cars out there tonight. With the update of the rules, they're 50% starting fuel on board them. For 45 minutes, they can go upwards of 65% at the stop. So they should be able to get these cars home without too much difficulty. They may still need a little bit of adjustment in the mid portion of the race, however, to get them home. Simon Nicholson now, he's got Warren Pickering in front of him. Will Orton, who we saw only a couple of laps ago getting that move done on Scott Gamble. So he's in a very quick forward at the moment. Interesting name for them, the old Drop Bear Motorsport. So they're doing very good. And this is a huge run. Trying to come out 3 wide, not going to work out for him in that sense. Oh, but Pickering's suffering just a little bit as well, running very wide. So actually, Orton now claims that position past Nicholson and set his sights forward to Warren Pickering just ahead.
And they got 4 seconds up to Dan Log. That's kind of the divide that we were talking about right at the start of the race, which was formed with a few spins on the opening laps. Also kind of different little spins, but fortunately none of them turned out to be a pile-up. Not usually too much of a risk around this Silverstone circuit. Plenty of ground for these drivers to utilise. That is the gap between the midfield drivers and the front runners, so quite a big distance. Look at this on the inside for Josh Thomas. Went for the dummy and trying to imitate Leclerc Verstappen. Brilliant battle last season, that. And we might see it a couple of times as well this season in Formula 1. But Edwards bending it off. They are losing time now to Luther. 1.8 seconds is the gap. And despite matching the past few laps, I think on this time, Edwards is going to lose quite a bit of time, and he does. He loses half a second, 6/10 of a second. It was 7/10 of a second even on that last tour of the circuit. And this is, I always struggle in this situation, Daniel, for Joshua Thomas. I mean, do you overtake some? Because if you try to overtake, you might feel like you're faster. If you can get it done in one corner, it can help the pair of you. but if it takes you a few laps, then it ruins any chance of your race victory. So surely it's just wiser just to stay behind and keep up a good pace, keep up with the race lead.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenging situation to get caught in though, because for most of these drivers, obviously, they're going to want to get that move done as quick as possible. The longer you stay behind, the more the red mist sets in, and you run that risk of potentially doing something a little bit silly and maybe causing yourself more harm later on. So if they can get up close enough to get the move done sooner rather than later, that's probably going to be the best bet. That being said, though, I mean, Craig Edwards, while he might not be the quickest cat in the box, he is thereabouts as far as the pace goes at the moment, and this always has been a bit of his strategy. Doesn't necessarily go out, run the fuel and the car to the ragged edge. It keeps a little bit in reserve, and ultimately it actually pays dividends for him in the long run. Shorter fuel stops, he's a bit kinder on those tyres, which is going to help him later on in the race. But he then comes back up to be challenging for the win as well. So he's not a bad one to go with. And looking at the way he's driving this car right now, you can see not getting a full run down the back straight. Utilising the draft, but the placement of the Fusion Sim Racing car for Edwards, very, very nice. Just enough to make it just that bit difficult for Thomas. And Thomas is going to have to come up with something very, very special now if he wants to get this move done.
So once again, having to take a tight line to Stone, a bit of a tight line as well to Club. Meanwhile, Crisp has been overtaken by Braden Nash. Braden Nash, a very competitive driver. I think he came close to the title a couple of seasons ago, did Nash, but didn't have a fantastic last season. Steve Janssen also into the pits. I believe that was from the top 10 as well. Currently leader of the drivers who have come into the pits is Brenton Hobson. And he's currently lapping. Well, actually he hasn't set a representative lap time because his last lap was coming out of the pits. But we'll keep an eye on his lap time, see if this undercut is going to work for him. Overtake for Nicholson on Gamble just ahead. Has Gamble been able to come back? No. It's Nicholson up into 14th place. That was a very tight move into the first hairpin. You can criticise the first hairpin for the flow that it perhaps deteriorates. However, certainly is an extra overtaking spot on this circuit. Also, Thomas all over the back of Edwards. And could this be the change of position? It's Thomas on the inside, Edwards on the outside. Thomas has already got his nose ahead, and this should be absolutely finished for Thomas. And he goes through up into second place. Now can Healy jump onto this one as well? It's not a long run down into the Maggots, Beckett's Chapel section, and he does stay behind. And look at Davison now. Davison was in the next train of cars earlier on, but such has been the batsman, he's been able to leave that train and join onto this one.
Yeah, some very quick guys starting to work their way through the field. I almost thought we were going to see a little bit of contact between Thomas and Edwards as Thomas fired the Fishy Motorsports car just across the nose there, Edwards, and luckily we didn't get that contact. But for guys a little bit further back, Danny Davison doing a stellar job right now. Pace very, very nice and consistent. He actually set his best lap time last time by at a 1:57.66. So certainly finding some form in the Porsche, and a bit of a change for these guys. They didn't run the Porsche last season. It was mostly the BMW, but again, we're starting to see with the change of the setups that the series organisers have brought out, and for those new tuning in that haven't followed the season over the last few events or championship seasons that we've had it here on Apex and iRacing Esports Network, they all run a fixed setup, and there's a lot of work that goes on in the back end to try and equalise the playing field as much as possible, really put it in the hands of the drivers. I think looking at what we're seeing right now, the organisers have really hit the nail on the head as far as the setups, especially between these three cars.
Yeah, they've done a brilliant job once again. And it's so fantastic to see a fixed setup series. It's always tricky with fixed setup series, and some people claim that it's not necessarily totally fair because obviously you can't change the setup to your driving style. However, the setup that they provide are so competitive that whether you're a pro or whether you're not particularly comfortable with the cars, whatever it is, you're still going to be comfortable with the setup. So it is a fantastic equal playing field. It just means that you know that if you're second lap slower than drove ahead, it's not down to the car, it's down to you, and it really does give that impetus in order to improve for future rounds of the championship. So no, thanks to the organisers for doing that again. Hupert, second place in the championship last season, lining in 7th place at the moment, 8 seconds off the lead on that last lap. It was about 0.4 of a second slower than the race leader. I'm sure he'll be just focusing on the consistent finishes at the moment. Silvati is pretty close to him by the end of this straight. None of these drivers at the moment coming into the pits. We have seen relatively few pit stops so far. Only a couple in the top 10 positions, but we do see another one. Silvati had enough of that when he was getting held up by Huppert, so he's going to roll the dice.
Yeah, and that now brings Ross Rizzo in for the fight as well. So change out one trick sport car, bring in another one. And for Huppert's, he's going to have his mirrors full because Rizzo's certainly not a easy competitor to keep behind you as well. So this fight's going to continue out, even though we've exchanged drivers for the time being. It will be a stellar fight as they continue on. Further up or a little bit further down the field, we haven't mentioned him yet. Adrian Vlock, new livery on that car this season, and new team by the looks as well. So BFG Quick Fix Computers, little change from the old Fordzilla that we saw for the last couple of challenges, but he's got Bradley Saunders right in front of him, trying to get a move done. Not quite going to get it done at this point in time. Actually, Saunders running a little bit wide on the exit there. This might present an opportunity for Vlock if he can get the drive out of the corner, which seems to have had at this point. Might be able to get this car down the inside here.
Here we go for Vlock. Straight down the inside. Such a fantastic interior iRacing is designed for that 4GT. Certainly, in my opinion, the best looking interior of any of these GTE cars. Absolutely huge wheel. The visibility isn't great. However, it is still very fun to drive, and Vlock is up into 21st position. We've got a car off. That is Warren Pickering. He was very strong early on, was Pickering, but he's now dropped down to 19th place. And I wonder how he's been able to do that. Looks like he's dropped it mid-corner. But it's slightly strange situation that, because usually the tyres would be in their absolute peak right now. Maybe there's a bit of contact involved. And there is. Just a tiny little tap. And round he went. That was with Simon Nicholson.
Yeah, and I'd almost be thinking that's even it looked very close as far as contact went. I think potentially maybe just a touch of a little hint of net code there as well. Ultimately rotated that car around, but he was able to get back underway. Did drop a handful of spots there, so should be good to keep going. Lee Vandenberg now in the lane for his final stop tonight. We'll see where he comes out. For good comparison, I think we're seeing a lot of these guys at the moment around the 12-second stationary for their stops. So if you can get in under that, setting yourself up for a good run. Lithuate still commanding a solid lead out front. He's actually extended it now to 3.5 seconds and looking very good in the newly liveried Synergy Sim Racing car. It's a solid effort for him right now as well.
Ever since Thomas got past, the gap was kind of maintained, maybe opened up by a couple of tenths, but it was that 3 or 4 laps of battling for Thomas and Edwards, which has opened up the gap. That instance that we just saw, 7:18 and 9:74. No further action, which is good to see. Racing incident, which certainly did seem to be that case from the angle we saw. Just a tiny little bit of contact, maybe a bit more room being left by both drivers would have been quite wise. Rizzo all over the back of Huppers. Where has so Silvassi is ahead of Vandenberg. So Silvassi currently leader out of the drivers who have already pitted and lapping pretty well. Actually, has a better sense of that time, Silvassi. I was looking at Steve Janssen, who's been pretty quick. Apologies. 57.91 that last time for Silvassi, and the 57 is kind of the range that you want to be. He's third out of the drivers who have come into the pits. Hasn't really worked out for Brenton Hobson, who we saw came into the pits on lap 4. Of course, such a difficult balancing act. Of course, if you come into the pit, then you're going to have a lot more fuel on board with your car, which is going to slow you down by a few tenths of a second. However, it does give you, most likely, some more fresh air. You're not going to be involved in a big pack. You're not going to be fighting as much with other drivers. So it just depends on the situation you're in, whether or not you want to come into the pits. But expect the leaders to probably stay out as long as possible, unless they are just trying to fend off maybe an undercut from another driver, because it really likes to flag on paper the staying out on fuel as long as he can should be the fastest way to go. Aaron Dodd in 15th place at the moment. Has he just been overtaken by Specchio? I think he may have been. He's just behind him at the moment anyway.
Yeah, and Dodd actually finding himself in a bit of an XRC sandwich at the moment. He's got Dixon behind him, as you say, Specchio, and then Martin Crisp up ahead. So he's going to want to get past these three and start progressing his run a little bit further. But the pace so far has been very, very good. He's last time by 3/10 slower than his outright best, which is good to see. The pace still starting to come back to him, but he's going to need to move pretty quickly if he wants to get his way further up. Still got that pit stop in hand, throws the car down the inside, so he's going to try and have a move here. Not going to get it done though, so he's got a few options. Gets the move done now, utilize it, or utilize that pit stop to maybe get it done if he can. But let's have a look through as he runs through the S's here, just to see whether he can close up in the BMW. That long wheelbase should be a little bit more stable through the mid corner, but actually losing just a small bit of an advantage on the run in. And actually Dixon gets a fantastic run behind, as you see on the little camera in the background there, and this could be another opportunity here for Dixon to come through.
Quite. I think the tow for Dodd just helping him out in that situation. Huppert's with small issues. Actually dropped behind Ortson now. I don't think that was coming into the pits for Huppert's. He's down to 10th place. He's dropped behind Rizzo and Ortson there. So Huppert's struggling at the moment. One of the best drivers. Oh, as now Rizzo slowing down. So I wonder if there's been contact between Rizzo and Huppert's. And now Rizzo just redressing that position. It does mean that you probably have a smaller penalty. It means that Orson's up into 8th place. He was down in about 16th place earlier on, was Orson. In fact, he started this race in 29th. Stormed through the order though, Orson. Certainly 17 seconds off the leader. Driver who I haven't seen too much for Drop Bear Motorsports, but certainly representing us Brits very well.
Yeah, and I think for Ross Rizzo there, that was a smart move to get back. Here's a look at the replay as we see the guys running down. Rizzo pokes the nose out the inside of Huppert. Actually, if anything, it was nearly there to get that move done. I think that would possibly come down as a bit of a racing incident there. But better part of Valo, he stepped aside and allowed Huppert to come back through. Here's another look from the onboard of Nathan. Can't get a look at the inside corner there to see if that car, how far along it was, but here we go, here's a better view. We'll jump on board with Rizzo down the inside. He's well up on the inside, but when you're this far into the corner, it's a very tight angle to get it through, and ultimately the contact there. Lucky neither of those cars to get cleaned up by the few that came through, but for Rizzo, dropping back behind, probably the smarter move there. He'll get another chance to reset. I think that will be looked on a little bit more kindly from our race stewards, and he should be able to go again.
So off into the pits is Davison and Healy, who were running in 3rd and 4th. So they'll try to, 4th and 5th they were, weren't they? They will try to undercut then Thomas and Edwards if they possibly can. But Edwards now quite a long way behind Thomas. In fact, Thomas has got the gap down to 2.6 now in the lead. That last lap he took quarter of a second out of Aidan Luthwaite, so the gap is closing in a little bit, and we expect Thomas to be able to take maybe 1 or 2 litres less for his pit stop, because he will sit in behind Edwards for parts of this opening stint, so he should have saved a bit of fuel in the tow. That might bring it down to maybe 1.5 seconds, so this race certainly still on. Fine margins, and we're only just halfway through this opening race of the Aussie Mixed Conflicts GT Championship. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and hopefully you'll tune in for the rest of the season as well. 11 or 12, need to check. Is it 13 rounds this season, Daniel?
Let's have a look while we're keeping on that. Oh, a little bit of issues in the background for Healy working his way through. That was Matt Allison, and then I think just getting past
Janssen?
Bradley Saunders as well.
Maybe
was Janssen, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's a shame for Janssen, because he was doing alright, was Janssen previously. But Healy is now leader of the drivers who have come into the pits, by the way.
Yeah.
Sanders
and we would
sorry.
I was going to say, we would expect Healy to be up. He was a little bit further ahead than Silvassi at that time. Here's just a quick look at the replay. Actually, Saunders already a little bit loose and actually loops that around all on his own there. So, and almost gets hit by his teammate coming through as well. So, bit of an awkward one there. And for Healy having to negotiate his way through that did very, very good. And just quickly, too, back to our scheduling that we were talking about. So, 12 rounds for the season. With 4 90-minute enduros midway through to look forward to as well.
Yeah, I think they're all back to back, aren't they? Which
Correct.
will be a challenge for the Jazz. It is almost like a bit of a separate endurance cup. However, the points from the endurance race do still count towards the overall championship as well. And the chance of you having a faultless series is pretty much nil. We always see Jazz get involved in a couple of incidents because it's very tricky to qualify at the front every single round. But it's just about getting those consistent results, getting those top 10s, which can really make the champions in this. So it's got down to 2.2 seconds now on that last lap. Another quarter of a second faster for Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas is really starting to find form now. He's been very quickly catching and the pace really solidly in the mid to low 157. So if anything, Lithuate maybe just struggling a little bit or trying to save those tyres is allowing Thomas to slowly close that gap. But this is certainly going to present itself for a nice run at the finish. And just quickly too, with the championship, we noticed in the lead up to this, we actually had what you heard from race control. There was some very big numbers joining the championship this time. So not only do we have the 40 that are running here tonight, there was another at least another 100 drivers that had also signed up for the championship as well to have a participate. So you might find some interesting names we don't normally see work their way up through into the top split over the course of this championship as well, which could be very exciting to see as we watch Thomas now run down the lane for his stop. Lithuate also in for his stop tonight too.
I was about to say that seems to be as far as the fuel will go, because I think both of them want to go as far as possible on their fuel, seeing as I explained earlier on, it's probably the faster way to go. However, Edwards and Clean Boosting being able to go further. Thomas is into the pits. It's a big lap then for Edwards, big lap as well for Clean Boosting. He's only 2 seconds behind Edwards. Has got faster and faster, has the Dutch driver who resides in New Zealand now. He has got much faster, has Clean Boosting, as this race has gone on. So he might be able to jump the likes of Healy and Silvassi and Vandenberg when he comes into the pits. Now, where are the front runners going to come out onto circuit? Thomas is just exiting the pits at the moment, so too is Luthwaite. And there they are. So the gap, actually, I think that looks a bit bigger. It's now up to 2.8, or stationing for 7/10 of a second longer was Thomas, which I'm surprised about. That seems like he took maybe a litre or two more than Luthwaite, when I thought he'd take a little bit less fuel, because he came into the pits. Also, he was following Edwards in the early stages. So that's a little bit of a respite now for Luthwaite. He's got a few extra tenths to play with. And that's certainly the gauntlet set down now for Thomas to catch.
Yeah, it's definitely surprising there. That being said, though, while Lithuate's gone just that fraction lower, or putting out a little bit less fuel in it, does that still give him enough to get the car home? And are we potentially going to have to see a bit of fuel saving over the course of the next 15 minutes in order to do that? I would think, knowing the tank capacity size that we've got here, hopefully they've got it calculated just to the amount that he can run full throttle the whole way through. But it's certainly that to contend with. Plus, he's going to have a few cars that he's still got to get away through as well that have yet to come in the stop. This will be interesting, though, because Edwards and Klimberstink now in the lane for their respective stops. Also, Darren Lobb joining them as well.
Rizzo stays out. That Ford must have an extra large fuel tank, I can only imagine, because that is a couple of really long. There's a really long stint for Rizzo too. He was in the draft for the majority of the stint, so he leads the lap, which will be nice for him. I see Ford out in the lead as well. So Edwards and Clean Boosting, these guys could be quite close to Healy. Silvassi's quite a long way behind Healy, so he won't be in there. But Thomas and Luthwaite, actually Thomas will be second place, so it's basically just Healy, isn't it? Healy, Edwards and Clean Boosting to see where they are. Edwards only just behind Thomas, right there. That was very close, and also, so Edwards behind Thomas. So that is a change for the lead. Sorry, where's the
Well,
other
hang on.
driver?
What's happened to Lithuate's back in the
Yeah.
pit lane? So has that been a connection issue for Lithuate? Because that's his second stop at this point, and that's dropping him. Well, it has now dropped him out of contention as we see him continue to fall down the order at this point. So be interesting to find out, unfortunately, what has transpired for him there to see how that's gone by. But for the guys up front, though, Rizzo is still pushing on. Thomas and Edwards, that gap very, very close now, and then Healy's going to throw his hat into the ring. Similar to Klimbasink as well. Here's a little fight, though, between Fusion Motorsports and Trick Simsport, or Trick Esports, sorry, with Michael Healy and Julian Klimbasink going at it. And Klimbasink looking very, very good for pace at this point in time as well.
Massive shame for Luthway. That was looking like a tasty battle. I think Thomas was probably going to be on course for catching him by the end of the race. Whether or not he would have been able to overtake is a completely different matter. However, that he's had any chance of the race victory gone for him, and that is quite a setback in this round one of the championship. You really want to get these race wins whenever you can, and that one was begging for him right there. We'll let you know if he where he ends up in this race. He is back out on cycle. He's in 34th place though. Is Luke Great for CNG Sim Racing, so I think he scored a handful of points, but certainly not as many as he should have done. Rizzo is into the pits, so Rizzo should be around Huppert's. I guess he was battling with Huppert's earlier on. Hobson up into top 10 now. Hobson, he came into the pits earlier than anyone else. It kind of resulted in him being in the same place that he was anyway. Here is Rizzo. Well, this could be ahead of Huppert's. He is going to be ahead of Huppert's, is Rizzo. He might even be ahead of Janssen. That's really good for Ross Rizzo. He stayed out one lap longer, or a couple of laps longer than the others, and he is now ahead of Steve Janssen. Lee Vandenberg as well, only just ahead. So that's work on the board.
Yeah, but Rizzo's going to have to drive the wheels on that. We did see a notification from race control after reviewing that incident between himself and Humpers. He will get a 10-second time penalty added post-race, so he's going to need to drive the wheels off that Ford just to get himself up a few more spots and give himself an opportunity to still filter into that top 10 once that penalty is taken into consideration. So at this point, if he was to have it handed out as the race finishes right now, we'd see him drop down to 16th position at this point in time. So yeah, a lot of work for him to do, and he's got Lee Vandenberg just out in front as well, so that's not going to be an easy move for him to get through either.
Drive the penalty for Adrian Block, veteran of the series, and he is already down in 26th place as Block, so he'll drop outside the top 30 because of that. Berg, pretty under pressure from Rizzo at the moment. He'll be able to dip into that draft. We're not quite sure at this stage of the season what is going to be the fastest car. We've always believed that the BMW's got very good drivability. It's just really nice coming out of the corners. You can adjust the car a lot, and not to criticise the iRacing too much, but of course with some of the criticisms of the physics, just struggling to really have a lot of confidence in the car when you've got that amount of grip in the BMW. Drivers certainly do gravitate towards that, but the Ford with this most recent build has certainly had a bit of a pace advantage. Janssen's now right onto the back of Rizzo, and here comes Janssen on the inside into the hairpin. Last, it wasn't an opportunity. Now takes a wider entry on line there for Rizzo, just straight lining the braking area rather than stretching out to open up the corner slightly more, but despite that, Janssen nowhere near close enough, moving on to the Wellington straight, and Rizzo actually getting back into the draft of Berg as well. So with 10 minutes to go of this race, we've got Thomas leading 6/10 of a second ahead of Edwards, as now Rizzo does go wide. And is there going to be contact between these two? It was a very odd mistake from Ross Rizzo previously, and this would be a great move if Janssen could pull this one off. Into Woodcut they go. Now, should be the better line here for Ross Rizzo, really. But Janssen has got the momentum on the outside, has to back out of it, and that's ruined any chance of them overtaking the car ahead for now. But back comes Janssen again. Rizzo should have been a bit more aggressive, and then going through Kopp's corner, and he's lost out because of it. Down into 9th place. Janssen back into 8th.
Yeah, 2x2 through there doesn't really work out. For Rizzo, that all started with a bit of an inside lock and saw the car just veer off to the right midway through the corner there. So lucky to get it back and only lose the one spot. He's got Brenton Hobson now closing in as well, and Brenton's a pretty tough competitor for those that know him in the V8 series. Runs a lot of supercar, but nice to see him jumping across to some GTE action at the moment. So Rizzo and Hobson know each other reasonably well. Similarly with Jensen as well. These guys all now in for a very solid battle to close out. Just under 10 minutes to go in this race. But yeah, we'll see what comes of that. Out front though, our leaders still extending, actually starting to close down again to give us a solid battle here. Josh Thomas and Craig Edwards, 0.7 of a second. It's starting to come back a little bit in Edwards' favour now. He's been able to slowly bring that gap down just a fraction, and then Michael Healy as well, just hanging thereabouts. You can see him in the back of frame, trying to close up as well.
He's just been able to repel clean boosting, I think, for the time being. Can't afford to make a mistake, but now he can kind of look ahead rather than looking behind. Edwards just within that draft region, but he's failed to close the gap within about 0.4 of a second at the moment. To question how much of a challenge he can make. Of course, the pole sitter was Edwards, but he dropped down to third place off the. Was it third place off the start? No, he dropped down to second place at the start, then got overtaken by Thomas, and then seems to be dropping back in the first half of this race. But in the second half, and since that pit stop, he's been much more competitive. So just dropping to 3/4 of a second behind now. So a bit too far back before a move into Stowe. Rizzo's got back past Janssen again for 8th and 9th.
Yeah, he was definitely looking the goods in that car after that little bit of a wobble. He was able to close right back up and get a move done. Hobson now big into the draft on the back of Janssen. The Porsche drifting over just a fraction. Hobson a little wider, and Hobson not quite able to get that through. He gets a good mid-corner exit though, so he might be able to set himself up for a run through the final couple of complexes here. But just behind, you've also got Nathan Huppert's getting involved as well, and a good 3-car fight here for the minor positions. These guys scrapping over 9th, 10th and 11th respectively at the moment, as we see Kane Ryder in the lane for his final stop. And for Kane Ryder to have got that BMW to 38 minutes through, that's a huge run for him there, and he'll fall just outside the top 20 now as a result of that late stop.
Yeah, how's he done that? I can only imagine. Well, the fuel is limited to 65%, isn't it?
Yeah, so all the cars will start out with 50% capacity in the tanks, and over the course of this shorter sprint format, they have the ability to refill to a max of 65%. So for Ryder there to have got that far into the race, he is definitely been just breathing on the throttle, keeping it clean and consistent, and a fantastic run for him to do that. See Phoebe, Crisp and Pickering all getting involved as it. Pickering actually gets that move done over Tim Phoebe. Actually, sorry, that was over Jason Dixon, and now sets his sights on the back of the defending champ and Tim Phoebe.
I think Dixon losing a couple of places there. I can only imagine that Jay got to 38 minutes. Must have, I know, like Pierce is on the open lap or started from the pits, because, yeah, 38 minutes on half a second of fuel is absolutely insane. Should only be able to get about half an hour or so into the race at most, especially around a high-speed circuit as this Silverstone track. As Pickering 0.4 of a second behind Phoebe. Phoebe now onto the back of Martin Crisp. He's having a good race at the moment. It's Crisp up in 17th place. Another veteran of the series is the Canadian. Seen him race in the Canadian E Series as well, where he's had some decent results, I believe. However, he's got some very competitive drivers behind him. It's just about how many of these places can he hold on to for the remaining time. Oh, he gets a hit, does Phoeben. He's been hit by Pickering. He straight away waits. However, that was really clumsy right there from Pickering. A complete mistake. It wasn't even an attempted overtake, but he's absolutely missed his breaking point. I mean, he was going wide anyway. I think it was Pickering. It's a very strange mistake because he had braking markers on the outside. Then it's just been a massive lapse of concentration.
Yeah, a little uncharacteristic there for Pickering. He's normally one that's consummate professional, and unfortunately, they just missing the brake markers. Does the smart thing though, stops instantly, allows the redress between himself and Phoeben. I would expect, similar to what we saw for Rizzo, there'll be a bit of a penalty handed out from race control after that issue. But good sportsmanship from him there to know, made the mistake, instantly stops, allows the redress and gets back underway. A little further back, Simon Nicholson, and Braden Nash going at it as well.
Healy and Clean Boosting. I'm just seeing on the timing tower, really close to one now. It's just opened up again. Apologies. But for a moment, it was down to about half a tenth of a second. I wonder if we were going to see a change for third place. Picking getting a 10-second penalty for that then. So nice and quick from the stewards to decide that one. Pretty much an obvious. I'm sure it would have been a lot more as well if he hadn't done the redress. So it certainly was worth doing what he did. Really close actually for the lead now. 4/10 of a second between Thomas and Edwards. That last lap, Edwards managed to take another 10th of a second out. We've got 3 more minutes to go. That's 2 more laps, including this one. And this is pretty much as close as Edwards has got. However, the gap just opening up to 8/10. Driving in deep actually was Thomas. So the gap ebbing and flowing. And that's a much better line through Edwards there. And he gets a bit to exit. So onto the Wellington straight. This gap will probably be down to about 3.5 tenths of a second, I imagine, by the end of this straight. And now trying to break the draft as well is Thomas, trying to preserve that lead as much as possible. Like I said, this is as close as Edwards has got all race long, ever since he was overtaken by Thomas in the opening few laps. Taking that arcing line as well as he seems to like that one, and it does give him a bet to exit going through Woodcut. Healy as well coming under massive pressure from Clean Boosting, but we'll pay the majority of our attention on this lead battle. It just takes a small mistake, doesn't it, from Thomas? Just a poor run from Chapel, picking up a slowdown, and that's the race lead gone.
Yeah, it's not going to take much for him to ultimately lose it. It's going to take everything in his power to try and retain it, however. So, if anything, probably the best position to be in right now is where Edwards is, applying the pressure as much as he can, force Thomas into a mistake where possible and sneak up the inside there. But for Thomas at the moment, he's just doing enough to keep that gap at the 3/10 marker at the moment. You see just behind as well that battle with Healy and Klimbusing closing up as well. But both of these two fights that are going on right now, very seasoned competitors, as Edward just jinxed a little bit wide, tries to open up that corner and maximise the amount of car speed and grip that he can utilise through the mid-corner, and that's actually helping him close that gap back up again.
That was a really good run there for Edwards, and I think as long as he can keep his foot planted to 1 and 2k good speed, he might have a chance into the hairpin. It's such a big braking area, and Thomas is just not running these racing lines anymore. He's taking a tight line, and to be fair, into the hairpin he had to, but at Stowe and at Club he was defending fresh air really, and just wasting a couple of meters of extra turn-in area, and it's put Edwards in with a chance. Once again, breaking the draft is Thomas, and Edwards not quite staying right in the track. So it's a good tactic from Thomas just to try to, from Thomas to try to break the draft. Now he's slowing down on the apex as well. He is just trying to keep track position now. And if he does win this one, he will be absolutely delighted, because this is big pressure. You can see how he is feeling that pressure right now. He's got one more chance, really, does Edwards, down into Stowe Corner. And then I guess into Vale as well, if he forces Thomas offline into Stowe. He is closer than he was on the last lap. They pick up one more 1x. I don't think either of them are anywhere near the 35 instant limit. This is when you want a few extra spare as well, so you can push that little bit extra, carry those few kilometers extra through each of these corners. Edwards just a little bit wide through Chapel. He could have taken a bit more curb there, and it compromised his exit ever so slightly, and the gap opened up to 3.5 tenths of a second. Back down to 3 tenths. Does Thomas have to go defensive into Stoke Corney? Once again, leaves a couple of meters on the outside. However, I don't think it's going to matter. Edwards will close in. Will he go for a last-ditch move into club? It's not going to happen for him. And in this first round of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship at Silverstone, it will be Joshua Thomas to take the spoils and the championship lead. Josh Thomas takes first blood in this season of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship. Edwards pushed him hard in second place. Healy holds on against clean boosting. Look at this. Vandenberg and Rizzo. Rizzo gets Vandenberg. He overtook Janssen. He overtook Vandenberg near the end to get a very impressive 7th place. It was Silvati and Lob in 5th and 6th. And that was fantastic, wasn't it, from Joshua Thomas? I thought he was being a little bit over defensive. I thought he was running a little bit too far offline there, Daniel. However, he did just about enough to hold on to the win.
Yeah, it was a really good run there for him to come home and do everything he needed to do to hold a really hard charging Craig Edwards at the end of that race. So, while it was a little unorthodox as far as some of the race lines went, it certainly proved to be a very strong opportunity and scenario to go with. As we just watched the finishing 80 and Lithuate, and what could have been for him tonight, having had a chance having taken the lead of the race very early on, and that unfortunate second pit stop later on really hurt him, as we see a few guys having a bit of a crash as they get over the line. And it looks like our final driver to get across, Dave Clements, gives the Ferrari a bit of a bootful and ultimately loses it right there on the camera, so he won't be overly happy with that one.
Yeah, not quite. Yeah, the donuts were meant to start on the in lap, not the final lap for Clements. He'll finish in 34th, but on the lead lap will score some points. I can only imagine that that penalty we saw for Luthway. I can only imagine that was like a pit exit penalty, perhaps. Maybe he crossed the pit exit line, although I don't think the pit exit line is very tricky around this circuit to cross. But maybe just maybe let go of the pit limiter too early. Very strange one, having to come into the pits once again, and that's a massive shame for him right there. But it did open up the opportunity for Thomas to take this round 1 of the championship. He wins out in the 766 car and also finishes top of the pro drivers. Craig Edwards, top of the elite drivers in second place. Then it was Michael Healy earning out the podium. Julian Clean Boosink, Martin Sorvasi, Dan Love, and Ross Rizzo in the top 7. Lee Vandenberg was in 8th, then Steve Janssen, Brenton Hobson, Nathan Huppert's in a bit of a struggling 11th place, down 3 places from his start. Will Orton was up 17 places, was up even more than that. At one point was Orton, but still, nice job from the British driver. Then it was Simon Nicholson, Graydon Nash, Scott Gamble, Adam Gardner, Martin Crisp, Jason Dixon, Jeremy Clark, Aaron Specchio, Tom Huggan after a tricky start. Good recovery, to be fair, from Huggan. Warren Pickering was in 22nd. Could have been much higher for Pickering as well. Then was Garnett Patterson, Danny Davison, Timothy Phoeben, very much in the wars, the reigning champion. Adrian Lechty, Matt Allison, Bradley Sanders, Alex Creator, Jordan Pruden, Adrian Block, Aidan Luthwaite, Dominic Mellett, Dave Clements, Aaron Lee, Kane Ryder, Jordan Cullis, Aaron Dodd, Blake Delaney was in. Apologies, Blake Delaney wasn't in driver. Aaron Dodd was the last of the drivers then in 38th place. And remember, this wasn't the only race in the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship today. There were 2 other splits. So lots of drivers taking part. So it's a fantastic start to this season. So we are going to get some interviews with drivers now, and I think first up we are going to try to get an interview with our race winner, and that is Joshua Thomas, who is in chatting with us now. Congratulations, Joshua, on that race victory. Those closing stages, that was tight. I mean, it was all between you and Craig, because in the early stages, you were behind him, you overtook him, you pulled away from him, and then in that second stint, it seemed like he had the pace advantage. Any ideas what changed there? Joshua, are you with us? Aha, Joshua doesn't seem to be with us at the moment. So we will we'll try to get in. Typical, I shouldn't ask long questions, should I? Craig Edwards is now. Craig, can you hear us? What's going on here? No one wants to have a chat with us. I mean, Daniel, can you hear me?
I'm here. I just didn't hear you introduce me. Hello.
Aha, here's Craig Edwards. Awesome. Apologies, Craig. We tried to have a chat with Joshua. It didn't work out, but we can now have a chat with you. Well done on the second place. Let's start from the start. Fantastic qualifying for you. But the start just allowed Aiden past. What happened on that first lap? Because it seemed like a really good launch, but he just managed to get you, I think, in at the end of the Wellington Straight.
Yeah, I was struggling on the exit onto that straight pretty much all race. And yeah, in the first stint, I really couldn't find a good rhythm going. It wasn't until I was starting to chase down Josh at the end that I was really felt like I was hitting my straps. Yeah, I was pretty stoked though to be on pole, given how tight that field was. I don't think I've ever seen an AMF race where it was barely a second covering the entire field. So yeah, good to be on pole. Happy with second. Josh did a really good job getting past me in that first stint. I didn't quite have enough time to work on the back of him in the second stint. So well done to him.
I was a bit surprised in that in that pit stop how close you were to Joshua when he came out of the pits, because I think you dropped to about 2 seconds behind it coming out of the pits. You're only half a second behind. Were you slightly surprised by that?
I have had good luck making time in pit stops in the past, and we were pretty aggressive with how much fuel we wanted to put in. Not too aggressive because I still had enough left over at the end. But yeah, historically I make a bit of time through there, so it was good to see that continue, and it gave me an opportunity to fight for the win and put on a bit of.
And how much were you thinking about the championship in those closing stages? I mean, if this was a one-off race, do you think you would have been slightly more aggressive to make that overtake?
No, I think that's the way I like to race all the time. I want to make my moves clean, make them obvious, and yeah, get through with no doubt that it's, I earned the pass. And yeah, first round, last round, I always try and drive this.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having a chat with us, Craig. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, first off, big thanks to you guys for the work you do each week. It's fantastic to have the broadcast continue for this season. And yeah, big thanks to my team, Fusion Sim Racing, and our sponsors, Dripping Paint Graphics, Eclipse Signage, and Daryl Carter Plastering.
Awesome. Thanks for having a chat with us, Craig, and we'll see you back next time.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much.
Craig Edwards there, your second place runner for Fusion Sim Sports today. Next up, we are going to try to have a chat with Joshua Thomas. Joshua, are you there?
Hi, boys. Can you hear me?
Yes. Haha. Awesome. Finally, we can have a chat with our race winner then. So before, I was just saying how you were so much quicker, it seemed, than Craig. Well, so much quicker. I mean, like quarter of a second a lap quicker, maybe, than Craig in the opening stages, and managed to pull a gap. But then he was coming back at you hard in those closing stages. That must have been tough.
Yeah, I think the pace difference was I didn't have too much nerves or too many nerves in the middle stint. I was kind of just really focused, and then once I saw Luthwaite pull in for the pits because he needed more fuel, I got real nervous, and I think that's when Craig started catching up to me because he's pretty experienced. He knew what he was doing. So, yeah, I got a bit nervy, but thankfully I could hold him off and get a race win, which is awesome.
you guys have a lot of incidents to kind of play with around this circuit, and this is a pretty difficult circuit as well in terms of the 1Xs. Do you, how tactical is it picking up those 1Xs? Do you kind of target certain corners thinking I can pick up one here every other lap? What's your kind of thinking towards that?
At the start, I tried to use a few just to try and keep off like other competitors, just to make sure I didn't have contact with them. And then towards the end of the race, I tried to stay on the road as much as possible, just to make sure I couldn't get picked up for potentially gaining an advantage using like the same off track, if that makes sense. So I tried to keep it as clean as possible. So I didn't really strategically use them. I just tried to keep it as clean. Yeah, just tried to keep it as clean as possible.
We certainly managed to do that throughout. Next up in the championship, I'm just trying to load up the schedule. It's going to be Le Mans next week, which is going to be pretty epic. I can't remember AMF ever visiting Le Mans. I'm sure they have, but how did that go for you last time?
I've only time I've ever cut a lap around Le Mans was on Gran Turismo 4 on the PlayStation 3. So I've got to buy it this week, but it's looking like it's going to be a bit of fun. It's a long lap, and the slipstream is going to be pretty overpowered. So I reckon it'll be a bit of fun.
Absolutely. Are you taking part in the 24 next weekend?
I am not. I've got plans outside of sim racing, but certainly next year I'll give it a go.
Awesome. Yeah, so congratulations, Joshua, on that race win. Of course, taking the championship lead as well. Is there anyone you'd like to thank?
All the Fishy Motorsport boys. Great bunch of dudes. All the new sponsors are hopped on, and yeah, everyone who helped me, get me to where I am now. It's been an awesome ride, and hopefully we can continue this good form. So yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome. Thanks for having a chat with us, Joshua. See you back next time.
See you, mate.
So last up, I believe Daniel is going to have a chat with our third place driver, Michael Healy.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Michael, congratulations, third tonight. You found yourself in a solid battle to close out the event with Julian Klimbasing, but for yourself and Trix Import, a very good run at the start of season 12. How was it out there?
Yeah, hi guys. Yeah, it was a good race. I enjoyed that battle. I definitely wasn't expecting it first time in the series.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen the Ross and Martin have a run. We haven't seen you too much. How did you find, obviously, first race coming into it? And I guess after that, are we going to see you back for more over the next 12 events as well?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be around for the whole season. And yeah, it's definitely well run. I've seen it looking in, and it's one of the best series running at the moment. So it's good to get.
Yeah, definitely. And for you guys there, looks like a few different cars in the stable tonight between the Ford and the Porsche. How did you find pre-season? Were you able to come up with cars that felt quite good? And how do you think everything's going to unfold as we progress our way through over the course for the Porsche and for the team?
Yeah, well, being a fixed setup, I thought I'd try all the cars and just find what suits me the best, and it seemed to be the Porsche at the time. And that's the good thing about these fixed setup races is your teammates can do what they sort of car selection wise.
Yeah, definitely. And to close off for the race, looked like after the pit stops all unfolded, you kind of came out of a bit of nowhere. You jumped quite a few spots early on. We saw you come out around a couple of cars. I think it might have been Brad Saunders and Matt Ellison both having a spin that you had to negotiate yourself through. That looked rather tricky there, but no damage on the car, thankfully.
Yeah, that was probably the most frightening bit of the race, coming my outlet there, but I sort of took too much fuel, about 4 or 5 litres too much, so I should have been ahead. But all in all, it was a very fun race, and I'll definitely be back.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Well, we'll look forward to catching up with you over the course of the championship. Again, for tonight, congratulations on third place, and it was a solid effort. First time out, and before we let you go, was there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to for helping us out?
Yeah, for sure. I'd just like to thank Pro Sim Gear and Trick Custom Fabrications, and also Night Rider Designs for the sick liveries, and also Apex Racing for putting on the quality show that it is.
No worries, mate. Well, again, congratulations on third, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat to you a bit more as the season unfolds.
No worries, thank you.
Michael Healy there, finishing in third position today for Trick Esports. So, Tyler, I mean, next week, looking at that schedule, Le Mans, the Joes are going to... so they're going to be sick of that circuit. Many of them, I'm sure, taking part in the 24 hours. So they're going to have to take some time out of the 24 hours to go race round Le Mans again in a 60-minute or in a 45-minute sprint race. So they should be pretty strong, but that's going to be really tricky for them because they're going to go from one setup, I guess, or even a different car, and then mid-race jump into a completely different car, of course, potentially, or drive a car with a very different setup. So that's going to be quite a challenge for these guys next week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a huge undertaking to transition from the endurance format like an iRacing special event where, as you say, different setups, potential for different cars. The other big thing is you're not driving for yourself in those. You're driving for a team, and you've got other guys to consider about not only your performance but how that car finishes up. So it'll be a big mindset adjustment to switch from that back to the sprint format that we have for AMF. But for all these guys, very capable of being able to do that, and I don't think it will hurt them too much. They may find a few little nuances with the setup that don't quite fit to their liking to what they've been able to tune out of those cars for the Le Mans race, but I think it'll still present a fairly unique challenge for these guys. Go from that mindset of 2-3 hour stints behind a wheel. Now you've got 45 minutes. It's just a hell for leather. Balls out, go for it type of an event, which is really good to see as well. So I think it's going to be very exciting. The draft is going to be phenomenal around Le Mans. It always is. Be interesting to see how the gearing change takes place in the cars. Maybe if there's a slight wing adjustment with the long track configuration setup that they do have. But yeah, I think it'll be all in all a fantastic event.
Yeah, really looking forward to that round of the championship. That'll be on at the same time then on the Sports Network and on Apex Racing TV, same time next week, once again 45 minutes, and we'll see if Joshua Thomas can once again win out. Of course, if you've enjoyed this video, do please leave a like on it. We would mega appreciate that, and also subscribe to Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Later on, we've got the Apex Racing League GT Championship. That is going to be from Le Mans as well. That'll be a nice preparation for next week's 24 hours. So that will be on at 20 GMT. Right? Myself and Adam Hedgecock taking you through all the action there. There's also loads of other stuff. ARLTC Apex Racing League Touring Car Championship coming up on Thursday. And loads of other stuff. So subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network, subscribe to Apex Racing TV, and do check out our social media as well, Apex Racing TV, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all sorts. That will give you updates of all the championships that we are broadcasting, and little race rundowns as well of what's happening in sim racing. But for now, from me, Sam Fitzpatrick, from Daniel Leet and Scott Newton, for the first time this season, we are going to say goodbye to you from the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Championship, and we will see you back next time at Le Mans.